Hello and how's it going, everybody? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. Over the last couple of days there have been a lot of exciting discussions going on within the Bethesda community regarding player and NPC controlled spaceflight within Starfield. And by player controlled spaceflight I basically mean being able to fly around space and not just to deal with a fast travel loading screen. And by NPC controlled spaceflight I mean other characters, the AI, will have NPCs in the game flying around as well for us to help out or maybe take their stuff through a little ye old space piracy just like Mama used to make. And hopefully these NPCs don't randomly crash into us or block space doorways like Space Lydia. But moving on, I want to do something similar to what I did in yesterday's video, because in yesterday's video I collected and broke down every Bethesda statement that seemed to indicate manual player-controlled spaceflight would be in the game, and I'm pretty sure I pieced together a pretty solid picture that seems to indicate that it most likely will be. We as the player will most likely be flying around in space in our spaceship doing space stuff and space things. And with all this in mind, in today's video I want to use that spaceflight and switch things over to spaceships, because there is a lot of different makes and models and images and visuals of all the various spaceships we might be encountering amongst our star adventures within Starfield, and that's going to be the focus of today's video. I gathered every visual piece of evidence of all the different types of spaceships in Starfield, from the large cruisers to the small fighters, and we'll be breaking that down in today's video. And I did find a couple of very interesting things, and I have a couple pretty solid theories based on all of my investigations today, including I believe we as the player will probably not only be able to upgrade our spaceships, but also be able to buy an entire new spaceship, a whole different make and model than the ship we begin the game with. Now that much is speculation, so do expect there to be a little bit of speculation in this video, which means you will require that ye old speculation skooma, just like Mama used to make. I don't know why Mama is making so many things. Maybe she needs to take less skooma and relax. But either way, let's not waste any more time and make another accidental skooma pun and get into today's content. And we're going to begin today's video with the player spaceship that we saw in that E3 2021 Starfield trailer. And I believe this is the player spaceship. I mean, they did show the player walking onto the ship and beginning to fly it right alongside Vasco, who is confirmed to be a player companion. So I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that this is a ship we will have, or maybe even a ship we begin the game with. Now, it does look like a kind of small ship from the outside, but you got to remember, we have visuals of the character walking through this thing, and we were able to see a whole cargo bay. We're able to see a ladder which goes up to what looks like a resting and conference area with a bunch of tables and stuff, and then also the cockpit. So this ship on the outside is actually a lot larger than it may seem, which is kind of the vibe with a lot of spaceships. For those of you who have played Elite Dangerous and stuff, those ships are definitely a lot bigger when you're outside of them than when you're just inside of them. But either way, this is what I believe to be the player-controlled spaceship. We can see it does accommodate what seems to be a larger crew than just one person and Vasco, because there's multiple seats in the conference area where people can chill out and where they can discuss various star charts and plan their space adventures or their next move. We also see what looks like food, so this is a mess hall for the crew, and there's various documentation and updates from various factions within the game that I broke down earlier. So this is clearly meant for a crew rather than just one person, or at least it can accommodate a crew, and we begin the game as just one person, but then maybe as we get companions we can assign them to different various areas of the ship. But I want you to pay particular attention to just the design of the ship. You can see there's 4 side thrusters that look like they can adjust their different angles for various takeoff and landing procedures, and also just different maneuvering in space. And we can see these 2 angled back thrusters as well, which is important. I want you to keep this design in mind, because we're going to be using this overall design to identify this ship in other concept art, which means that our player ship is also in some of the other concept art as well that I don't think people have realized. But overall, this seems like a decent starter ship. It has a lot of controls and computer monitors, monitoring all the various ship functions and capabilities, so this seems like a pretty solid ship, even if it does seem like a standard starter ship, if you will. But like I said, remember the overall design of the ship, remember the 4 side thrusters and the 2 angled horizontal thrusters as well, because here's this image. This image is one that you all have probably seen before, I'm sure. This is definitely a popular concept art image for Starfield that was released like in one of the first batches of concept art, I believe. And you can see this very clearly is also the same ship as before. You can see the 4 side thrusters as mentioned previously, along with the 2, I guess they're vertical more than they're horizontal like I said before, but you can see the 2 angled main back thrusters as well. Also, you can see Vasco doing some work on a ship, and you can see some humans just chilling out and doing nothing, probably hallucinating on psychedelic space aurora fish. Nice job, guys. Don't help Vasco at all. Just kind of stand there and look at the sunset, sure. You can see Vasco is actually a big boy. He's larger than both of these humans, even though one of them is sitting down because he took too much space fish. But this is very clearly the player ship that we saw in the E3 2021 trailer, and it looks a little damaged. We can see black smoke coming out of one of the rear engines. Black smoke is usually never a good sign for mechanical or engine-based anything. When you see black smoke, that tends to be a problem, so obviously there's some damage on the ship. You can see some burnt areas as well, both up at the top here and on one of these side thrusters, and Vasco's probably busy repairing the ship. So yeah, this another reason why I think this is a player ship is because it's in multiple scenes, including this next one here, which is pretty interesting because even though this is still concept art, this ship does look like the player ship. We can see the 4 side thrusters and the 2 angled ones on the back. Only this version of the ship actually looks like it's a little bit more put together, painted, and taken care of compared to the previous images, which leads me to believe we might be able to customize or upgrade our ship or do something cool like that. This is just me speculating on a crazy speculation skooma time, but it's pretty interesting to see this ship here. I don't think a lot of people have mentioned this being the player ship, but given the design of it, it has to be, right? It just has to be, or at least it's another version of our ship that's owned by somebody else, because after all, I doubt that this particular spaceship is the only type of it that exists. It's probably something that's mass-produced, and we'll probably see other variations of it out there in Starfield, but nonetheless, I still have the feeling that this is the player ship, and this might even be our crew chilling out and guarding it, which would be kind of cool. Imagine like you leaving your ship and going out to do stuff when you land on some strange planet and some random settlement on the planet, and you like have your guards posted outside of your ship to protect it from people that try to mess with it. It would just be a cool vibe. I don't know why it's reminding me of Cowboy Bebop, but it is, and I hope Starfield has those vibes. Next up, I believe this also might be the player's spaceship, because again, we can see the 4 side thrusters and what looks like the rear thrusters as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure this dude right here is the player character because he looks like the default trailer character man that we saw in the Starfield trailer and the leaked concept art. The only thing is the cockpit of the ship looks like it might be a little longer than what we've seen in the previous images, but nonetheless, I still believe this is the player's spaceship that we get at the start of the game, which indicates to me that we'll definitely be able to upgrade it and modify it because it looks like exactly what's happening here. If this was a refueling process, I think that it would probably not be as invasive or time consuming as this. This looks like this is definitely maintenance or upgrading the ship. I'm sure that refueling would be something that's fast, where you just pull up to a refueling center, they put the thing inside of your ship, they put the thing inside you, and they fuel you up, and then you go. It would be more akin to like maybe a little bit more in-depth gas station experience rather than this. This is definitely ship surgery. This is definitely ship upgrade or ship repair, which to me indicates we'll be able to upgrade and customize our spaceship within Starfield. Now here we see again what I believe to be the player-controlled spaceship, because this spaceship looks very similar to the one we just saw in the cargo bay, and it has the 4 side thrusters and the 2 back ones like we saw in the first few original images of our spaceship. Like I said, the cockpit does look like it's a little longer than we've seen in previous images, so maybe this is a larger make and model of the spaceship that we were just breaking down in the previous images, or maybe this is a more upgraded one, or maybe Bethesda just simply changed the design throughout the concept art process. Either way, I'm pretty sure this is the player's spaceship again, and that it's landing somewhere where it probably shouldn't be going. That doesn't look like the coolest place. Some random planet butthole diarrhea smoke thing. I'm not sure that I'd be totally down for that town, but either way, let's move on to this image, which again looks similar to the one we just broke down, but look, there's no 4 side thrusters. There looks like there could be one, or maybe 2 here, as these things look like they could be thrusters that are just simply shifted up for the landing procedure, but the overall just aesthetic of the ship looks a little different. The ship says Stellaris on it, and it has just different design elements to it than the previous ship that we have been breaking down. It has like exterior wings that the player's ship didn't have previously, and it just looks like it's larger. Also, the 2H on the side, which is probably a fuel tank of some kind, is new to the specific ship. So this just, to me, seems like this is a larger ship than the one we've been breaking down, than the original player's ship. But yet again, we see some dude here. Now, obviously, this is used in terms of scale representation. This character standing off to the side shows you just how massive this spaceship is, but the thing is, if this is the player character just standing outside of the ship, then this could be evidence that we can actually buy larger ships and have multiple ships for some reason. We can probably store ships in a cargo bay or a hangar somewhere and choose which ship we want to use. That would be insane. That would be some Elite Dangerous level depth to the gameplay, to the space flight mechanics, and I mean, even though this is concept art, if we try to hit that skooma, that speculation skooma real hard, it almost seems like this is indicating that we could as a player have larger spaceships and stuff. But let's move on to a different ship, to this big boy right here. Now, this obviously is a different ship than the one we just broke down. It has a different cockpit design, it has different thrusters, but nonetheless, it's another major ship, a huge one that's landing on another planet. This ship looks kind of like it's cruiser class rather than just a small ship. I would say this ship is medium sized and is probably quite more capable than the ship you begin the game with, but nonetheless, it's hard to say if this is a player controlled spaceship or not, or if this is just another ship that we might encounter throughout our travels. But this is still a different design, a different make and model than we've been seeing before. Like I said, this ship probably could be capable of hauling cargo from A to B, of actual combat. This seems like this is an all-purpose ship, which, if someone is a spacer, a space explorer, they probably want a ship that's a jack of all trades and capable of a great deal of things, because if your ship is only focused on mining and you don't have anything to defend it, people are just going to come along and take what you just mined for themselves. Now on to the next image. I believe this image is literally the same ship that we just saw in the previous landing image. You can see it has the same cockpit design, the same wingspan. Obviously it's from a different angle and we don't get to see too much of the rear side of the ship back here, but if you take these two images together, it looks like this is exactly the same ship. And like I said, this ship is definitely larger. I would consider it medium or even large size in terms of whatever Starfield considers to be a cruiser class or a capital class ship. We don't know what the largest ships are in Starfield yet, but this ship is definitely pretty large, and it does seem to have weaponry on it. It definitely can carry cargo with just how big it is. It has to be able to carry something. But one interesting thing that stands out to me is usually bigger ships aren't capable of planetary landings. They usually send shuttles out and stuff to land on the planets, to send away parties, to send the crew on a shuttle to the planet where the actual main ship, the ship like this, would just stay in orbit. But we can see the same ship landing on a planet clearly, so I mean, maybe ships in Starfield are capable of landing on planets when in other sci-fi universes, larger ships would not be capable of such things. Either way, only time will tell. That's just me speculating. Let's move on. Here we can see more big boy ships, and this is a totally different design of any ship we've seen before. We can see that there's 3 of these things. They're kind of in formation, so I would imagine that they might be part of a faction of some kind. Maybe the Crimson Fleet, maybe the Free Star Collective, maybe United Colonies, who knows? But these ships kind of have a military vibe to them. We can see what looks like side rail weapons of some kind, maybe kinetic weapons. It's hard to really tell, but these ships just have definite military vibes, in my opinion, and again, they're a different type than we've seen previously. There's we've already broken down 4 or 5 different kinds of ships in Starfield, and different variations of our own starter ships, so if Bethesda can actually have a wide collection and variation of ship designs and ship models, along with the ability to customize and upgrade them, that would just add so much discoverability in terms of what you might encounter in the world as you explore. We might encounter different levels of the same spaceship that have been upgraded and unique to that actual NPC and pilot, and that could just keep us kind of like on edge because you never know what you might encounter out there amongst the starfields. Either way, let's move on to the next image. Another big ship and a different version of a ship than we've seen before. Unlike the previous ship we just broke down, I don't think this one is military focused. This one seems like it's almost trade focused or scientific focused because it seems to have different like various scanners and things on it. I'm pretty sure that these are either solar panels or heat sinks of some kind, but I can't identify any weaponry on this. I see a lot of scanners, I see a lot of different modular things that don't seem to be weapon focused, so this is probably a cargo ship that has a lot of capability to scan for various enemies who might want to pirate their stuff, or this is some kind of survey or scientific ship. Either way, we can see that this is a totally different make and model than what we've seen before, which is very, very interesting. And real quick, while this isn't a spaceship, it's obviously like a space station of some kind that's capable of spaceflight, so I wanted to mention it real quick. We don't exactly know what this could be. This was obviously featured in the very first E3 2018 Starfield trailer, but one interesting thing about this thing is it does seem to have some kind of warp drive capability, combined with the fact that many believe that the interior section here, that circle, is actually this room here, seen in other Starfield concept art. This room seems to be like a library of sorts, and in fact, the image here in the center almost looks like the space station itself, but nonetheless, we don't know what this thing could be, but it does show us that there are much larger space station-like structures within Starfield as well. Here we can see a fighter, or maybe just kind of a shuttle that was flown from a larger capital ship down to the planet's surface, like I talked about earlier. But we can see the spacecraft doesn't look nearly as large. However, it just could be the angle we're looking at it. Maybe this guy standing here isn't the best thing to use in terms of perspective of how big the ship is, because the ship is way back there and is much larger than it appears. But nonetheless, this is what seems to be a more individual pilot-focused spacecraft that reminds me of a fighter craft of sorts. Here we can see a cargo ship. This thing could probably even be a drone because it looks like its entire purpose is to just ship big crates around. Nothing too exciting, not the most exciting life, although it does seem like it could have some kind of turret-based weaponry at the top here as well. But now we see a cargo ship. This ship might not even be able to fly outside of the orbit. This ship might just be for atmosphere-only flight capabilities used to just fly cargo from one settlement to another. Here we can see what definitely looks like a shuttle. Now this thing doesn't look like it has that much of like weaponry on it or even modular types of things. It looks like it's just basically literally a shuttle that just carries people from point A to B. But the overall design of this ship is much different than we've seen before. It's a lot more sleek. It looks more like a space car than a spaceship, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. And what I think this is specifically, since we see it on Neon, is it's a space shuttle specific to the planet that Neon is on to fly people from Neon to the other settlements on the planet as well. And lastly, we have this weird shaped thing here, this spaceship that is way up in the sky of this concept art. Kind of hard to make out, but again, there's not very many features or notable designs on the ship. If anything looks like an alien spaceship, I would say this one is right here. All the other designs of spaceships have kind of like a human vibe to them, but this one is just kind of weird. Obviously, it's far away and it's concept art and it's way up in the sky that we had to zoom in on to look at it, which could mean that the artist just didn't need to put that much detail on it because most people wouldn't notice it or zoom in on it like this. But nonetheless, this is yet another type of spaceship. There's like been 7 that they broke down just based on the concept art so far, and each one seems to be a quite unique design and different compared to the other ones. While there is still a overall vibe and aesthetic to each ship where you can tell that the technology is kind of the same, the thrusters are kind of the same, and they're just built differently or placed differently depending on the make and model of the specific spaceship. The thing that stands out to me is no matter the ship, The design is still solid, you can tell it's a Starfield spaceship, and the overall aesthetic is awesome. None of these look like cookie-cutter sci-fi spaceship designs. They're actually pretty thought out and unique, and I have like a lot of detail and thought behind them, and the technology that we can see. Combine this with the fact that I believe we'll be able to not only upgrade and customize these ships, but we as the player can fly them around and get bigger and better ships as well, based off my speculation from all this, from everything I broke down today. All this combined into one big skooma bottle just makes the hype assume direct control. But either way, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. I went through it kind of quick because there was a lot of stuff to go through, and I didn't want to keep you all here just sitting around for an hour as I talked about spaceships. So I'm going to end the video here today. Let me know what your favorite ship design is down in the comments below and why. And as always, be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And be sure to also subscribe and turn notifications on so you can stay in the know when it comes to the latest gaming news. And finally, if you want to get a permanent feature video shoutout at the end of every single one of my future videos, you can support the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, as well as a link for Skullzi merchandise and the Skullzi Discord server. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time, when as always, thank you for watching.
It just works.